We're going to talk about the 1968 Lotus 56, which is a turbine-powered car. It was a very aerodynamic car because of its shape, and it was nicknamed the doorstop because that's what it reminds you of when you look at it.
Joe Leonard of San Jose, California is curious about a machine that runs with a whoosh instead of a roar. And Joe Leonard decides that he likes the turbines. He goes faster than he has ever gone before. And winning hope begins to grow in the heart of car owner Andy Granatelli.
Actually, it was owned by Andy Granatelli when he ran at Indianapolis. The year before, I almost won in Andy's car as well. And with 3 laps to go, it quit.
However, they are members of the Andy Granatelli entry here, and the other one is doing very well indeed, thank you. Car number 40, out in front.
Certainly is. He's extended his lead rather considerably.
Now there goes Gurney, about 4 seconds. And here's AJ, he's about 9 seconds behind. And now where's the rest of the field? Gives you an idea of just how these first 3 cars have begun to dominate this race. We continue to see the dawn of a new era here in Indianapolis as the turbine-powered car, driven by Parnelli Jones, moves out to a most comfortable lead over the rest of the field.
Last year, 3 Granatelli brothers watched their world come to an end as Parnelli Jones coasted slowly to a stop in the 196th lap. But right now, the sun shines again in Indianapolis. Their turbine is on the pole, and Joe Leonard has taken a big step into the future.
I must tell you that I wasn't too happy when that car showed up at Speedway because I was a piston engine guy, and I work for a piston engine team, like regular racing motors, not jet engines. And the only reason that I had any feeling for the car was that it was shod by Firestone tires. And we were a Firestone tire team as well. So no matter what, we had to stick up for Firestone tire team. So frankly, that was the only reason that I would ever cheer that car on.
1 turbine, 2 turbines, and now 3. Art Pollard makes the field.
Other than that, I hated it.
A fast, exciting race. Yes, that will come in a moment when the green flag drops. But right now, the sight of 33 individual steps into the future, traveling in formation at slow speed, is worth all the headaches that brought them together.
We always had some problem, but it was still difficult with these cars to keep the brakes on them. Brakes were your best friend because when you had the engine, it's a Pratt PT6 helicopter engine, so when you had it spooled up, and you backed off of it, it was still accelerating. So you really had to use the brakes not only to slow the car down, but as well slow the engine down. So it made it really difficult for the brakes.
There is no downshifting. There is no like in a diesel truck, a Jake brake, if you will. There is no compression. So what happens is you let off the gas and nothing happens. The car just keeps moving ahead at the same speed.
Unser and Leonard have moved ahead of Ruby. Graham Hill is 4th. A few laps later, Graham Hill loses a wheel in turn 2 and hits the wall. 1 turbine is out.
What was interesting about the turbine was that it had, only 550 horsepower, which was low compared to the piston-powered cars. So it was funny, people thought Parnelli was sandbagging when he would drive because they would catch him on the long straights, but on the corners he'd be going flat out and he'd smoke them. And it was because it had 550 horsepower, but had 1,000 pounds of torque.
Leonard takes advantage of his teammate's misfortune in turn 2 and comes in for his 2nd fuel service in the race.
You couple that torque to 4-wheel drive, because that's what you needed to get the power to the road, and 4-wheel drive was allowed in Indy at that point. And you had a car that could basically go flat out in the corners, which the other cars couldn't, and the piston-powered cars. And so over the course of a race, it would dominate.
Joe was out first, taking the lead. While Leonard leads, Bobby Unser is 2nd.
because it was a jet engine, there was no maintenance engine. The chassis guys could work free to work on the car, unrestricted. There was no engine problems. There was nothing to worry about there was no transmission. You know, it was a simple car.
This other car here, the 60 car, is a turbine designed by Lotus with an airplane turbine engine in it. They outlawed this car, but this car, Joe Leonard held the pole for about 4 years. It was the fastest car. He led most of the race, most of the winter, just like Parnelli in that other turbine car. He dropped out with about 6 laps to go.
And was leading the race somewhere around 12 laps to go, and the yellow flag came out. When the yellow flag came out, they slowed way down, and Andy had made a deal with Standard Oil to run gasoline instead of the jet fuel. And on the yellow flag, it froze up the fuel pump drive, and when the green was dropped, that thing wouldn't take off and cost the race.
At the start of the 192nd lap, the green flag comes out and the incredible happens. Joe Leonard accelerates, but nothing happens. The turbine engine dies, and the car rolls to a stop in turn 1 as Bobby Unser sweeps into the lead.
Only circumstances prevented from winning the Indianapolis 500 in 1968.
Andy Granatelli is stunned. This is the kind of a nightmare which can happen in broad daylight. Car quits cold in turn 3.
The cars were running 1 and 3 with just a few laps to go, and they each fell out on consecutive corners.
1, 2, 3 turbines qualified. 1, 2, 3 turbines went out of the race.
That car fell out on the first corner, and the next one fell out on the second corner, and Bobby Unser won the race for the hated Goodyear tires.
Firestone, who financed the thing, paid a great deal with Andy, wanted to run the car the rest of the year. And so they needed me to go along and do the chassis setups. I said, well, I'm not going to work for somebody else. They want to give me the car, we'll run it. And I wound up taking Vincey, Andy's son, for a chief mechanic, and he and I became great friends and had a great relationship. I still have a great relationship with Andy as well.
My name is Vince Granatelli, and I'm here to talk about this 1968 Lotus turbine. This Lotus turbine was actually the second generation turbine, the first being the side-by-side construction car that Parnelli Jones drove in Indianapolis in 1967. Came within 3 laps of winning the Indianapolis 500. Able to sit on the pole in Indianapolis in 1968. Again, leading most of the race in 68 and failing to finish with 12 laps to go with a fuel pump drive shaft that was broken.
But anyway, we dominated the races everywhere. Qualifying, we were up front, just new track records and everything else. Never won a race. Well, this year, not just a couple of months ago, we took the car to Goodwood, England for the Goodwood Festival. And we run the car up the hill, made 6 runs with it. I made 5 runs with it, and Lord March made 1 run with it. Again, that's when you realize that the brakes are your best friend, because it's a road circuit and you certainly have to back off in several turns. But Indianapolis is a little different because you can run a real high-speed cornering, so you don't use the brakes that much. But when it came to a road course or a small oval where you really use the brakes, it was really tough on that particular car.
We're certainly glad to have the car in our collection. It's a historic car. It did set 2 track records, one at Hanford, California, and one at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.